Hi, welcome back to the Lorcana Cube. And today I'm going to be talking about Set 6. Set 6 looks awesome, has a ton of super cool cards. Now, I'm specifically going to be talking about characters in this video. In the top 10, I say here 11, but two of them are pretty similar. Top 10 characters from the new set. And I'm specifically relating them to the cube. So there might be characters that are very good in multiples, but because my set limits each card to just one copy of itself, that I have to distinguish very good cards when you only are allowed to have one of them in your deck, and that is if you draft them. So if you see one of your cards that you think is totally busted, know that I also probably think it's busted, but I'm specifically referring to cards that are going to be very good for my cube. And I still haven't decided if all of these are going to go in. I certainly want them to. It's just the challenge that I might have to make in another video of what cards are going to have to come out. So thank you so much for watching. I'm going to talk about the top 10 characters now. I want to specifically start with Madam Mim. So Madam Mim is super, super sweet. I think the qualities that make her very, very good for the cube is that she's very low cost too. And her static ability of giving other characters Challenger +1 seems ridiculous. The reason why I say that is because in my cube, there are plenty of cards that care a lot about staying alive as much as possible, but also care about challenging and coming back to your hand. So there's a sweet Hey Hey card that specifically cares a lot about hitting other creatures. And this card is really sweet in terms of card advantage. You can play it, hit into their creatures, bring it back to your hand. There's other cards that talk about, hey, when a creature is banished in a challenge, you get to gain card effects. Tons of that in my cube. So the fact that Madam Mim fits so well with cards like Hey Hey, it is going to be crucial and a huge bonus, especially to just characters that don't care about other things. There could just be really nice low curve decks that you're building in the cube that Madam Mim specifically is going to now give this boost to. A lot of the balancing mechanics in this game is that characters only get one attack or a certain amount of defense. And the fact that she gets to kind of break that and giving everybody an additional attack is sweet. We've only previously seen that with certain archetypes. Your princesses get +1 attack, or your villains. And so this is a sweet card, especially low to ground cards, just like Daisy Duck, where you want to quest with her, but if she just naturally has Challenger +1, meaning if you want to run into her 4-wall defense, she just has a 2 attack that she's going to be dealing back to you. That's sweet. So that's Madam Mim. And the next card I want to talk about is Gogo Tomago. And this is a really cool all-around card, super versatile. It's a 2 ink 2/2, questing for 1, but has evasive. Not a ton of cards in my cube have evasive, so adding a new card with it is already going to help a lot. But then this extra text down here, whenever you play this character, you may pay 2 ink to gain lore equal to the damage on chosen opposing character. I know people are super excited about this card when you're talking to cards like Tamatoa, who's going to have a ton of damage on him, and he's going to have additional bonuses for all the items. I know that's true in the constructed play. People want this because of how much damage he can soak up, and I'm sure there are other amazing reasons. But in my cube, when you really don't get multiple copies of cards and you have to ram into things most of the time in order to remove characters, this is going to be really sweet payoff for that. You sacrifice your board, put 8 damage onto a character, but then for 2 ink gain 8. Oh man, that's going to be really, really sweet. So I'm really excited to see where this card goes, especially in my Creatures Matter cube. Now the next 2 cards very specifically are just generically very good. We've seen multiple copies of these in the past. And so Olivia and Hiram are very similar, just a little bit attack and defense differences. So very similar, but we've seen this with Lilo, and we've seen this before, and where you've got this just amazing card advantage amazing ink advantage turn one. If your opponent doesn't have anything to play turn one, you're probably going to go up 4 ink. And that's really, really sweet before they get a chance to deal with the card. So similar situation, you're building your deck around super low cost creatures that give you a ton of ink early on, especially if your characters don't have, or your opponent doesn't have any ways to deal with it right then and there. It's going to be super easy. So that's why I consider Olivia and Hiram to be very similar. And sorry about the siren in the background. But Oswald, it only gets worse. But Oswald. Oswald is the next card. During your turn, whenever a card is put into your inkwell, you may reveal the top card of your deck. If it's an item card, you may play the item for free and it enters to play exerted. Otherwise, put it on the bottom of your deck. So Oswald, I think there are a lot of cards from this set that care when you put cards into your inkwell. I think Oswald's one of the better ones in terms of my cube, because my cube, one of the main archetypes in the cube is items matter. And so Oswald is going to slide really well into that archetype where you've got large items that matter, like Lucky Dime, that you can miracle right off the top of your deck. It's a magic term, but you can flip it, say, wow, hey, here's Lucky Dime. Instead of the biggest cost of this card is just getting it into play. But once there, man, that is a super good ability for 2 ink. So the fact that Oswald can sneak into play Lucky Dime in my cube is awesome. There are other, of course, very good items to just hit. Anything that you're just cheating into play is really, really good. But Oswald, I think for that reason, because one of my archetypes is items, he's going to matter a lot. Then Yzma, 4-drop. 4-drop, 3/3, quests for 2. You tap her, and effectively, if we're playing this card correctly, you draw 3. If you have fewer than 3, you draw till you have 3. Well, in that case, I'm building my deck around Yzma to just dump my hand, draw 3 every time I tap her. That's going to make a lot of cards very abusable when you have plenty of cards in my cube that say, ready character, they're not allowed to quest for the rest of the turn. Fine with me. I draw 3, ink 1, play 1, maybe one of the effects has me discard 1 or play 2, and then I draw another 3 when I untap her with one of my cards. That's amazing. So Yzma, this ability on a 4-cost body is really sweet, especially in cards that care a lot about in my cube. It's going to be the steel decks. And so specifically, it is the Sheriff of Nottingham deck. Whenever you discard a card, deal 1 damage to opposing character, and that works really well with Bayou. And so there are plenty of cards that care a lot about drawing and discarding. And so the fact that Yzma can increase your hand so you can discard even more cards, that's really, really sweet. Additionally, there are similar cards, and here's the Bayou, just to finish that conversation off. Whenever a character quests here, you could draw a card, then choose and discard a card. So when you have already that engine going in your cube, you can very easily incorporate cards like Yzma to draw your hand back up, especially cards like Doc, another 2-drop. Whenever you play this character, you may discard your hand to draw 2 cards. Sweet, another card that is best when your hand is empty. So when you start synergizing Yzma and Doc, emptying your hands and drawing back up, that's super, super good combos. I think Yzma is going to be great in my cube. Hiro, I don't really care too much about his first ability because there just are not enough good Inventor characters that I'm going to place from this set and in the old set for this to matter big time. It's really that bottom effect. This card begs you to utilize them well in the late game. When you are both top decking, looking for that right card to play, and you've got 6, 7 ink sitting in your pool, and you top deck nothing that you can, that matters. You can spend, 3 runs at it, depending on how much ink you have, to essentially scry 3, look at the top card of your deck, either put it at the top or bottom. Like, throw away a card if it's bad. If it's a card that you're like, I don't need this is not a win condition time card, totally fine. You just keep putting it, or you work really well with the miracle cards, especially with like Oswald, who cares with what cards are on the top card of your deck. You put these two guys together, and he's saying, look, in the late game, this is going to create so much of an advantage that it's sitting out there. And it's no small cake to get rid of it. And there's no reason to even tap him. I'm not questing for one on this guy with such a good static ability. I'm just going to let him sit there in the corner and treat him like an item that he's just going to sit there. I can pay 2 ink and just keep looking at the top card of my deck. So few cards in the game do it so readily and quickly. Yes, there are cards that exert themselves so you can look at the top card, or you have to jump through some hoops. But I mean, Bruno is going to be a card that cares about what the top card of your deck is that's in my cube. Then you're going to tap him, and you already know the top card of your library. You hunt for it, you find the card that you want to draw for that turn, you name it with Bruno, you draw it, you gain 3 lore, and then you get to play it. That's amazing. So I think Hiro with this bottom ability is going to be very, very good in my cube for finding its ways. Speaking of very, very good, I think resist is one of the best keywords across any game I've played, where it's every individual instance of damage is reduced by 1. So if they play 1 card, or I like to say Robin Hood's arrow, dealing just poking damage down, resist negates a lot of cards that just ping things for 1. So resist 1 is super, super good. So the fact that while being challenged, your other characters gain resist 1. Now, specifically, it's while they're being challenged, so it's not holistically ridiculously good. But a lot of these cards for a 4-drop, and once again, this is another character I don't think that the top card is as relevant. It's good, and I do have a lot of pirates, but it's not going to be game-breaking. But while being challenged, your other characters gain resist +1. That is so good because, once again, I'm talking about the characters that you want to keep alive. You want to quest with them. I'm talking about like the Lulus. So the Lilos. When you play a Lilo, and even if it's in the late game after turn 4, you want to have her stay around. So the fact that she gets a static resist +1 helps her stay around just from a 1 attack, 2 attack creatures, or better yet, anything that you care about your singers, and you want to keep them around just for a little bit longer. Resist +1 is so crucial for that. So I think this card is going to be worth the hype in cube specifically, because you can play any creature, you can play any strategies, and resist +1 will always be holistically good. I would play an item that gives my characters resist +1 statically, and that's once again kind of how this is, and I get to quest with her for 2. Pretty sweet. I definitely want to build around this in the cube. Maui. There are so many new action cards coming in this that I want to play with. Maui is going to make them great. There are wonderful, wonderful combos already with this. Maui, whenever you play an action, gain 1 lore. Whenever this character challenges another character, you can return an action card from your discard to your hand. Great. Okay, Maui syncs up really well with a bunch of cheap actions. And so really what we want to look at are what are the action cards that are going to really change. And I think anything that's going to give characters, especially moving damage off of Maui onto other characters, I think there are plenty of options when they're cheap, and that you say, hey, I want to, phenomenal, develop your brain, look at the top 2 cards, put 1 into your hand and bottom of the deck. I think that's a solid card to then just gain back into your hand, to create that card draw, looking at more cards than your opponents. Of course, there are plenty of removal that you can add in here. I really like Hypnotic Strength, giving a character plus drawing a card, then chosen character getting Challenger 2. I think that's crucial. And so I think Maui, being able to copy a lot of these cheap things and returning things, I don't think it's necessarily as busted with like Baboom. I think Maui is himself trying to deal damage. So it's other ways to get card advantage with this 7/5 body for 6. So he himself is the one who's going to want to deal damage. But even just in time, where you play another character with cost 5 or less for free, you get it back with Maui, and then you get more characters out faster. Or you get to quest with something, ready it, attack with Maui, bring this back, play it again. So someone theoretically could quest multiple times with Maui, and you came back together. Someone I'd like to quest a lot with is Wreck-It Ralph. Wreck-It Ralph is, I think I'm going to hold fast to this. There's one other card I'm thinking of, but I think this is the best card for my cube. I think it's going to be nuts in regular play as well. But the 6 ink 4/4 questing for 3 Ralph already is looking nuts because of this text. Whenever this character quests, you may banish chosen item or location to gain 2 lore. At first glance, if you don't catch it, it seems like, oh, okay, you have to sacrifice to get some more lore. No, you can banish your opponent's item or location to gain 2 lore. That's awesome. I think that's going to be one of the best ways to remove items and locations that they're probably going to print. I hope they see how amazing this is going to be. I don't think they're afraid for the limited play like I'm playing it for. But in my cube, when you are hunting for cards that do multiple things, like it quests for a lot and it gets rid of items or locations, oh my gosh, that's awesome. And it's a pretty big body. Yeah, I think Wreck-It Ralph Ham Hands is going to be the best card coming into my cube for sure. And then also Genie, Wonderful Trickster. Genie, Wonderful Trickster. There are plenty of cards that are cheaper that are going to do things crazy, but if you can get Genie out, and if you pull Genie and you build around Genie, I genuinely think that Genie can be a very, very busted card. The reason why I'm saying this is if you can shift him out, if you can cheat him into play somehow, when the line, whenever you play a card, draw a card, is so good for cheap decks that I think this can be your finisher. Is that you've got a bunch of cheap creatures, you're realizing, oh, I don't have that much beat stick, and then you see Genie come around, oh my gosh, you slap this guy down, hopefully you can shift him out, you find a way to get him out faster than that if you're playing a bunch of cheap cards, but being able to play a card, draw a card every time, you can play your whole deck very quickly. So I think Genie, specifically in draft, in cube, my cube, where I focus a lot on cheap creatures and the best cards possible, I think Genie can be an absolutely nuts card. Now, honorable mentions, just to name them, I do think that the new Tiana is definitely worth noting. I do think Tiana is very, very good. I need to find ways in my cube to secure her win, because right now, because creatures matter, because there's not multiple copies of things, I need to find better ways of protecting her right now, because while she is exerted, they're going to have to pay to attack, and that's great for her. I do think there are plenty of enough rush cards, and there's plenty of enough stronger beatdown cards in my cube to get rid of her pretty quickly. But I still think she's a very good honorable mention. If not, does deserve to be in my top 10, maybe after a couple plays. I got to get my hands on the card. I got to play with it. But I do think Tiana does deserve to be in my top 10. I just got to figure out, what card maybe is going to fall out of that top 10. So all these cards, these are my top 10. Tell me what you think. I'm super excited to play with them. I'm going to have more on the items and the actions. So let me know what you think, but I'm super excited to play with these cards.